ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Chamber of the Wraith. My name is Brian, and today we're going to be tackling the guest character that is most interesting. But before we do, why is Kangashiro Kano staring at me? Oh, he's back. Available in the premium shop now. Yay! Let's actually have good news there. Alright, so I want to talk about Spawn. And he is our penultimate character. We just have this clown left to go after this. But the thing about Spawn is that as far as guest characters go in Mortal Kombat 11, he's actually the best, at least in my playbook. Spawn has been demanded since MK9. He came out extremely well in Mortal Kombat X as far as like how the moves look and flow go. Yes? Yes. However, the only other guest that at all interests me is Rambo. And that was after a little bit of convincing, because I wasn't entirely convinced that he was going to be interesting at all. Now, Rambo, after the Combat Cast, has had enough interesting stuff that I'm like, I might actually try Rambo. But, alright. Terminator, whatever. I know that he was going to be in Mortal Kombat X, but then got cut. But still, it's the Terminator. No. If you wanted a Terminator guest, in my opinion, you should have gone with the T-1000. More interesting. RoboCop, terrible. I don't know why they thought RoboCop was going to go over well. Honestly, RoboCop is the weakest guest that NetherRealm has ever done. And that does include the Joker in Mortal Kombat 11. Who, while he is kind of fun and whatever, it's the Joker. I hate the Joker. Trust me, I really don't like the Joker in any way, shape, or form. So the fact that he ended up in this game just wounds me to no end. Because I just don't like the Joker. He's overused. There was a period of time... I know I should save this for the Joker video, but I can't resist. But bring this up. There was a period of time from, I think, 1945 to 1966 where Joker wasn't in anything Batman related. He wasn't in anything. He never showed up in any comics or radio dramas or toys or anything. It wasn't until 1966 in the TV show that he was brought back. And now he's literally all over the place, and I don't like it. Man, I don't mind if characters take breaks. 15 years might have been a bit too long, even. But, come on. You don't have to shove the character in my face that much. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's talk about Spawn. Low claw. 7 frame down 1, -4. Really nice. Really nice down 1 with actually surprisingly good range. Then we have Rising Cape. Fun fact, this crushing blow used to do 170 instead of 190 because for some reason, Spawn's crushing blow didn't actually do the same amount of damage as all the other as the rest of the characters. This was fixed in Aftermath, but it's still hilarious. Also, really good uppercut. 10 frames, great range, hurts like hell. Also on block, it's -19 on flawless block and -9 on normal block. Side kick is a really short down 3, less range than the down 1, and it's 8 frames, and it's -5. I seriously doubt that you'll ever see side kick on purpose. Then we have spinning heel. Side kicks, block data. Side kick is neutral on block, at least on flawless block. Yeah, it's neutral on block, and this thing launches. You're not going to see it too often, but the fact that it has this range can actually make it a half-decent anti-air. For instance, a basic example. Then we have Haunting Reflection, which hits twice and has really good range. Look at this. Like, I can almost hit the opponent from this range. On block, the sweep is -6. Now, unlike Kung Lao, and more like RoboCop, this will always hit twice. But the reason why I think Kung Lao still has the best sweep is because he can anti-air with his sweep. He can use it in just about any situation. Can't exactly use it in the same... I can't exactly say the same about his sweep, But the fact that his sweep is -6, meaning only Raijin or the Terminator can punish this. I have to say that now because I learned in the Terminator episode that his down 1 is 6 frames. There you go. And then there's Necroburst. An 11 frame down 4 with decent range, about the same range I'd say, if not slightly more than down 1. On block it's -8, but it has sizable pushback. So if it hits from its maximum effective range, then I don't think he can be punished this way. At least, not directly. Then we have, then we have his wake-up attacks. So, it's hilarious. And then for finals, there we go. So first up, we have Reflections. A really good range wake-up 3 that is 10 frames and knocks back considerably well. And while it doesn't catch jumps, it's -5. It's safe. It's a safe invincible wake-up, which we haven't had too many of in this series. So it's really good to keep an eye on, because Spawn can go for this, and while it's not his turn, he can absolutely just wake up, steal a little bit of chip, and go on the defensive, waiting for his opportunity to throw. Then there's the Hunt, which looks similar, but is slightly faster, and the Cape anti-airs. Now the thing is about this Cape is that it's -14 if it launches. If the Wake Up 3 is flawless blocked, it's -10, but it's -10. There are some attacks there are some characters that might not actually be able to punish this optimally. So it is something. So it is definitely something to consider. Now finally, before we get into combo strings, we have Hammering Chains and Lethal Lash. Hammering Chains is -14 on block and has half decent range. The benefit is Spawn advances slightly when he uses his chains. Lethal Lash is 12 frames, so slightly faster, and has slightly less range. However, -14 on block. So I believe it's actually slightly safer than the chains. No, it's just as safe. And I don't believe there is any alternates to talk about. Nope. But before we actually get into those, I forgot to mention I have to talk about his forward throw and his jumping attacks. So we'll start with his jumping attacks. The Betrayer, War Devil, and Hell's General. Now, there's nothing really to write home about, but in certain variations, you can actually cancel into a glide to get multiple jumping attacks. It's easier with standing 1, but if you can get it with standing 2, it becomes optimal. Now let's talk about his forward throw, which has a fairly unique crushing blow. Spawn's back needs to be in the corner if he does this. And what does it net him? Big boy damage! Which I dropped there, but you can see where the idea is coming from. You do this throw, you get 190 damage. They're standing, unlike the uppercut throw. Unlike the uppercut. And you get better combo scaling. It's only slight, but you get better combo scaling than if you landed an uppercut. Observe, almost 50% for 1 bar. And if I wanted to, I could end this slightly differently. That was 42% no bar. Now, this is where things get interesting. Nobody wants to get thrown into a full combo, so opponents are going to be ready to throw tech. Back throw. Now you have the corner. And while it's not exactly optimal, distance-wise, you can absolutely take control of the situation, put the opponent in the corner, and make the situation yours. Be dominant in the corner this way. Cornering Spawn is something you actively are discouraged from doing, unless you know that the forward throw crushing blow has been used already. So, Be extremely careful, folks. If you're fighting Spawn, be mindful of your positioning. If he has the corner, he's going to chew you up and spit you out. Now let's talk about combo attacks, because we got quite a few of those to talk about today. And a lot of them have some interesting properties. Just gotta make sure I have them all. Yes, I do. DED Dead! Starts off of a 7-frame high. Knocks the opponent down. And is -8. So not exactly safe, but it is quick. And there's no flawless block gap if Spawn actually goes for this thing. So, there you go. And at the beginning of the string, standing jab is -4, and this is +2. So optimally, you want to stop partway through to kind of enforce a little bit of pressure because you're +2. The opponent is -2. So if they try for anything and you know you have the faster button, they're going to get eaten. And that leads to Soul Chamber. Not the stage, the actual attack. This attack is very similar, but as you can see, it has slightly longer startup and knocks the opponent back quite a bit further. So, and on block, I have to hold it, I have to remember. There's a flawless block gap leaving Spawn at -3. But if they don't flawless block it, he's +7. +7 means this could be a frame trap because of 7-frame down ones. It isn't unless he's got the corner, but still. This has a crushing blow as well. If at any point this string counters or punishes someone, look at that damage. And remember, there is a gap there for this mid to exploit. If you mistime your flawless block, or you expect him to go for this, and you might think you're going to just crouch it and be fine. I don't think it's a high. No, it's a mid. So if you mistime your flawless block or what have you, or he gets a 7-frame punish, you're in a lot of trouble because you just ate 30%. Or, yeah, you ate 30%. I should say, I accidentally hit the share button there, so this might be fun. Then we have Fighting the Flebiax. I believe that's how it's said. This is his go-to launcher. Look at the range of his back one. It's ridiculous. And even at close range, he's -11. But if he does this, and yeah, he's -11. But what punishes him in 11 frames from this range? I don't think there's too much. So you go for this. The full string is -12. And I don't believe has a flawless block gap. Let's just make sure really quick. Yeah, it doesn't have a flawless block gap, but it's still -12. So you get this, you launch for fairly easy damage. That was meterless, almost 25%, about 24%. And of course, yeah. Okay, that's not going to connect. There we go. Another 24% combo. You're going to get around 24-25%. No problem if it's just this. And, of course, I'm not doing things optimally. Then we have Heaven and Hell. This string you're going to see a lot of people use because of how well it advances. Spawn is -5 if he does this. And this attack is -4. It was actually at one point -9, meaning that if you had blocked standing 1 or standing 2 before the Aftermath patch, you could have punished Spawn for that, which was ridiculous to think about. And Heaven and Hell has a crushing blow if the third hit is the only one that connects. And as you can see, you get a combo off of this and are put in an automatic glide state. And I'm not great with the conversions here, so give me just a minute. Okay, that didn't work. I'm going to have to go for the hammer. I said I have to go for the hammer. That's back forward 3, not back forward 2. Come on. Come on. Work with me here, would you please? I'm just going to do standing 1 into it, or jumping 1 into it, because it's faster. Come on! Why is 4-2 not coming out? Okay, I'm just gonna give it up there before it goes for too long. But you get the idea. You use this, you get this crushing blow, You get a combo out of it. And I whiffed it still. Damn it. However, if you notice, because you have to dial in that last part of the string, you always land that final strike. Now, the string is -5, and if the opponent holds block, okay, it acted really weird there, but I think the idea is that it's supposed to be -4, not what looked to be -42. I think that's just because of startup situations and such. However, if the opponent's flawless blocks are on point, they can flawless block and spawn is -11. You don't have to spend meter to punish him at that point. So you have to be careful. This can also work really well as an ender. So let's say I'm cornered and I do the throw, but I don't have any meter to do anything. I can just do this and get 41%, and it looks pretty cool. Good way to close out a round in my playbook, especially considering how hard Spawn knocks the opponent down. He's plus 19 at this point. Then we have Vacillator's Decision. An all-cape string that just looks so damn sweet. There's a sneaky low in there, which there's no... I don't think Spawn has any overhead special moves off the top of my head, so there's no mix there. But this is a really fast way to get conversions and knock the opponent back. And of course on block, 4-2 is -8. This is -6. And the whole thing is -14, but with decent pushback. So in most situations, you just want... If you find that the opponent has blocked this, just stop partway through, be -6, and at least they can't punish you, but you have to sacrifice your turn. Violator's Wrath, however, is interesting. It's off of the same 4-2, but it does a lot more damage. It does 160, and this is one of Spawn's most damaging strings. And in fact, while it's slightly harder to land, theoretically you want to use this in more combos if your timing is on point. You launch high enough, and this serves a very similar purpose to this. Except you just get a little more damage out of the deal. Now the thing is about Violator's Wrath, the chain is -17 on block, but look at all that pushback. Even though it's -23 and is technically punishable, so on block you want to go for this. On hit, you may want to actually do this, because Spawn is +7. And yes, you may think the knockdown is more advantageous because he's +28, but leaving the opponent standing and +7 means that if your timing is on point, you can just do this, you can just keep doing this, because it's 16 frames, so they have to act within 9 frames or they're basically dead, and you can punish them for going for a slower punish. Especially in the corner, when you have 7 frame options, it's gonna hurt. Because it kind of becomes a frame trap. Speaking of traps, we have It's About Power. A high-mid situation, 12 frames high, with a 7-frame mid right at the end. Leaves the opponent standing. Nothing to write home about so far, but on block, the tricky thing is that it's really good for footsies, because you can hit the opponent at about this range if they're very slightly closer, and then go for a projectile, which Spawn doesn't really have a good one in this one, so bear with me. So pretend that was his green fireball, and you've basically set up a situation where the opponent has to respect your zoning from the chains. And finally, we have 4 Wanda. You're not going to see this one too often, but I'm not going to lie, this looks freaking cool. And for Wanda, the full thing is -6. The 4-4 is -7. Now, there's no way to get the second hit because this string at the end, dial it. Even though it's special canceled. That hurt. Don't sneeze when you're in the middle of a sentence. Ow! Anyway, you can special cancel this one. And if you have in a situation where you really want to enforce some blocking situations and you don't want to be -6, you could do, at least in this variation, something like this. Not that you would get much of anything, because again, they have to respect your blocks, and it's not great. But imagine if the opponent is about to die from chip, and you kill them with chip this way. Which, because of how many times that whole thing hits, it hits 16 times. If they're close to chip range, you could absolutely kill somebody with this 12 frame forward, this 12 frame low, that if they block... Let's try this. Let's try this. -4, so maybe that will help better. Now, on the topic of that, let's talk special moves. His universal special moves. One of them does get replaced in this variation, but the truly universal stuff is what we're talking about right now. Unholy Veil. A stance that you can delay or cancel for defensive bar. So you can go and cancel. Now, while this cancel isn't real, it is real enough that some people who don't know much about those cancels might get clobbered. And Unholy Veil, if it lands, is a hide that does decent damage. So you can do this if you really want. But the beauty comes from this, the glowing green cape. The reason why it glows is because that son of a bitch is a parry! Particularly against projectiles, and I believe against physical attacks. I'm just going to make sure. So I'm going to go for it. Okay, it doesn't beat physical attacks. That's the other one that only beats lows. So let's say it beats a projectile. Crushing blow, baby. And if this is a crushing blow, this sumbitch launches, allowing you to get some pretty dirty combo situations. So, again, if this beats a projectile, gets the crushing blow, spend the meter, get 37%, which is not bad at all. Now, here's the thing about this attack. It's -4. But if it's flawless blocked, he's -14. And remember, this is a high. So if you see he doesn't have defensive meter, or if he just doesn't like to waste his meter on cancels, which isn't a waste in this case, and you neutral duck, uppercut punish. Oh shit, I have a non-tournament legal ability on. Oops. Then we have Soul Shattering War Club. This bad boy was the original armor break. This was breaking armor 2 months before anybody else. And if this thing beat armor, good lord did it hurt. First up, look at the damage that you get. That was 343. That was, first off, more damage than an uppercut. And remember, back in those days, the uppercut crushing blow did slightly less damage. So, it would be closer to... So, that's 302. And if you just landed this normally, you got 254. But, let's say the opponent breaks away, and you anticipate it. Well, you could uppercut for 279. Or, batter up, bitch, 34%. And that ain't all. Remember the Amplify? Which just kind of pops the opponent up and does decent damage and helps make this club have a really nice ender? Well... 50%, because you wanted to get away from an uppercut. Oh my god. Now let's say you parried a projectile. Okay, so I messed that up because I forgot that I didn't have the fireball. Still, you can see where this becomes terrifying. Launch an opponent and special cancel into this thing. You're guaranteed at least 47 to 50% if you have even half decent execution. And even if you want to go worst case scenario and just go for a string at the end, That's still 37% because the opponent wanted to get away from you, as opposed to 28% or 34%. This thing is one of the best armor breaks in the game, and it's in 2 of his 3 variations. And finally, we have Final Phantasm. A fairly decent special attack that knocks down... Oh, before I forget, the War Club is minus 22 on block. So you are definitely minus as hell for going for this thing on block. So don't do it, please. But then we have Final Phantasm. It leaves the opponent standing, so I'm going to turn off Breakaway for a second. Get a launcher. You could go for this, sure. But what if you want to leave the opponent standing? And get a little more damage. You're plus 4 in this situation, and you get a little more damage. Then if you amplify it, you get almost 20%, which is incredible amounts of damage. So, as you can see, almost 39% from an uppercut crushing blow. There's a reason why I ended that combo in Fatal Phantasm after this. Look at the damage that you net out of this bad boy. Almost 51%. Bears repeating. Spawn hurts. He hits like a truck. Now let's talk about his the moves that are exclusive to Variation 1. From Hell. First up is Gun Blazing, which is a high projectile, but not very good. Look at how long it takes for him to recover from this thing. He can amplify it. He has time to amplify this bad boy to get some decent hits and knock the opponent back. But if you're going to use this for anything, you're going to use it to try and beat jumps. So, there you go. You use it to beat a jump coming in. It's a godlike anti-air. Look at how much that hurts. And the crazy juggle you get from the bullets. It's not great, but it's not awful either. But remember, minus 28 on block. And that is flawless block, sure, but even on normal block it's minus 28. This is something you have to be absolutely careful of. And be sure that you're reading jumps or launches or... Am I on breakaway? I'm not. You could use it to end your juggle combo, sure, but just be careful that you don't have too much scaling. Then we have Blaze of Glory, which is a better version of Gun Blazing in terms of damage and reliably hitting things, especially since it's low. The only thing is it doesn't have quite the same amount of range. And yes, it does have a crushing blow. How do you beat it, you ask? Beat low options. And I do mean low options. For instance, you have to beat a low attack or project... Wait a minute. Is it all low attacks? Because I know it beats all low attacks. Nope, it's got to beat a low melee attack. Sorry, in order for it to be a crushing blow. So, beat a low melee, amplify, get your damage! But even if you don't beat a... but even if you just don't spend the meter, look at how far back they're knocked. They are only plus 3, whereas landing this thing normally is still plus 3. So you're gonna want to amplify it if you can for max damage though. But even then, I really like this move. It looks so cool. At least in my playbook, it looks super cool. On block, it's minus 17, so it's actually more safe than Gun Blazing. And because it hits thrice, it can chip somebody out. However, cancels with this thing are not real. And remember, if you amplify, you're gonna be dead on block, so keep that in mind. And one other thing, it doesn't hit full screen. However, the bullets apparently travel further if it hits, I guess, to make sure that you get all the bullets in somebody? I don't know. Regardless, weird stuff. Also, you can cancel the delay if you really want. It's not terrible, but it's not the best option for me, because you're burning defensive meter and you already have a cape cancel. Speaking of capes, we have Air Fallen Angel. This is a dive kick. It's mid, has more startup than Kung Lao's, which, I mean, that thing starts up in 4 frames, so whatever. This thing does start up in 11 frames off of a short hop, though, so that's not bad at all. And the cape is where... And here's the thing, the cape and the leg are both where the hurt box is. So it's kind of a dive cape situation, and look at that, I crossed them up. And I've knocked them down to be plus 23. So, definitely one of those variations that you gotta play carefully. But what you don't have to play quite as carefully is variation 2. The most common spawn variation, the 1. Before we get too far, though, I need to talk about a universal attack that we lost because of Zigant, which is Necroblast. This is a high projectile. Fairly good, nothing crazy to write home about. Amplify it for a second fireball that hits mid and knocks back. This is what I was talking about earlier with enforcing it with standing 3-4. So if you do this for max range, now they're full screen and they have to respect your fireball game, which spawns is really good. And in fact, you could also do it off of this, because remember, you're plus 7. So you do this, stop, go for this, it's 8 frames, the opponent has to either duck or block. Not a good time. Then, of course, you have the block pressure, which I just realized is not on. So, look at that pushback, and it's -1. So it's safe. So if I do this, 1, 2. Okay, got it. 1, 2. +4 at this distance, and that was with a flawless block. One tricky thing that you have to be careful of with Necroblast, though, is that it actually hits 3 times at close range, because the chain hits before the fireball. So you actually could potentially chip somebody out this way at extremely close range. You could do something like, in the corner, I think would be best for this. But you get the idea. You do this and then do that. And I'm -3 at point blank range if I amplify the fireball. That's insane. Now let's talk about attacks that are exclusive to the 1. Letha Glide. A really cool looking glide, but you're not using this to look cool over air mobility. You're using this to cancel your jump ins. See what I mean? Super cool stuff. And then, if you got your timings on point, you can do stuff like and get more combo damage. Now imagine, if you will, that your that game is on point, and you got a forward throw crushing blow. And you can see where that damage is really going to come from. I instinctively did back 4-3, forgetting that you don't get the War Club in this variation, but you do get Fireballs, so... The tricky thing is that because of how the opponent animates from the hit reaction, you're going to have a little bit of trouble landing it, so you're going to have to practice this one a little bit. Or settle for jumping once, which are easier to land, but do less damage. So settle for a little bit less damage for ease, or go for the damage, because the damage can save your hide in the long run. That was me messing up the timing there. As you can see, it takes a little bit of practice, but once you get it down, then there's really nothing to worry about. And in fact, I'm tempted to just do the easy route just to show you what I mean, because I, for some reason, am not getting those cancels today. There we go. So that was almost 45% just off of one crushing blow and no meter, which normally, if you didn't have the Letha Glide, you're only getting 42%. It's a little bit extra, but every little bit counts in a fighting game, I firmly believe. So you need to be careful with that. Now, you also have a close version, which doesn't travel quite as far, but... unless you're feeling confident, I would recommend just going for the normal one. Because it's basically the same thing in the end. Now, replacing the War Club and thus losing the armor break is charging Health Spawn, which is, on the surface, nothing to write home about. And in fact, if this is blocked, minus 25. Spawn's in trouble. So what do? You amplify it on hit. You get launches, baby. And because of how launches work, look at that. Easy peasy lemon squeezy damage. And let's say I did... jump in and do this. Look at that! 43% off of a straight jump 2. Or if I land this, just land this. You can see where this comes from. And this was buffed because it only scales on the second hit. Each weapon that comes up doesn't scale on its own, meaning that you get more damage in your combos. So this thing allows Spawn access to some crazy damage. I don't even think I jumped in for that. No, I did. But still, you can see the damage potential there, especially with charging Hail Spawn. That's why people go for this thing. You get the crazy combos, and sure, you don't get the armor break, but who cares? Combos! I care. I like being able to break armor. That's why I play Variation 2 and 3 Kotal Khan. That and also their son is superior to Ascension. I really don't like Ascension Kotal, if you couldn't tell. Now let's talk about Variation 3, which I believe firmly is slept on. And I don't know if I'm going to have enough to tag every single little thing that this does. Yeah, it doesn't look like I do. But we'll make it work. We will make it work. First up is Hell Chain. This is a throw. It's a high, but it's a throw, so it's unblockable and fairly slow. And on Amplify, you get a little more damage. But what if you held down the Amplify button? Uh-oh. Spawn is invisible! Yes, Spawn turns invisible, which is something that is not very common in Mortal Kombat games as it is. Usually only Reptile turns invisible. Or in Mortal Kombat X, the Predator also turns invisible. Or Shinnok if he copies the Predator. Also, I just noticed... Hold on. Does it cost defensive meter to... It costs defensive meter to go invisible, I just noticed. But it looks like the meter recovers fairly quickly. Still, be careful. Turning invisible is expensive. And if you hit the opponent with this chain, first off, it's worth noting that Spawn actually takes deals slightly less damage. What does 50 damage? 4-2. Okay. If Spawn is invisible, he actually deals slightly less damage. He deals 20% less damage. And he also, if Spawn turns invisible, takes 20% more damage as long as he is invisible. So, for instance, that ends up in 4750. But because I get hit out of it, I eat that 4750. So, risk and reward. But the reason why this is quite a risk is, well, think about it this way. I'm invisible. Are you really going to have seen that low coming? It's really tricky to say, especially since there's an overhead at the end of the string and whatnot. And remember, there is the crushing blow. If Spawn is invisible when he goes for this, and only when it connects, because he comes out of it if it amplifies, you'll get a crushing blow. So watch this. See? Anytime he throws, he doesn't become invisible. So there's secret tech here. If you turn invisible, let's say you turn invisible, and then you land this again, release Amplify, and then hold it again. Oh, it looks like it does the same amount of damage regardless. It used to be that you would actually get slightly more damage, but I guess they patched that out. Finally, oh, not quite finally, we have Raising Hell, which is a double low, which involves the chain. So it's a low projectile that can be amplified at any time to add a little extra ridiculousness, because this thing on block is insane. So normally, it looks like there's, is it double flawless there? Hold on. Because I think there was a flawless block out there. No, that doesn't look like there is. So if this flawless blocks, see, spawn is minus 33 if he commits to the whole thing on block, which doesn't sound that good. But if I amplify it, spawn is plus 7. Unless I'm, no, minus 7. Sorry. Glasses are broken still, so I have to look a little bit closer. Still, this is nothing to sneeze at. Turning any stray button into minus 7, especially if you time it right. Let's say, like that, minus 7 with all this pushback, and he still has his projectiles. So while he's not quite as safe as turning this into minus 1, it's still, or 0 in this case, it's kind of nuts to just picture, like, this is leaving opponents at minus 7, and then he could go for it again and knock the opponent down. And this is a low projectile, you understand, so be careful. And finally, we have the Lethal Letha stance. This is a true stance, so we're gonna have to be very, very careful with getting everything right. So first up, we have Lethal Letha stance as it is. You just hold it, it looks cool. Then there's, does the amplify only, yeah, it only comes out on the low chain, so just keep that in mind. You can cancel it by pressing up twice, and pocket your chains for later, and then you have up chain, which, while not that great on its own, in the corner, I think it only really works. Yeah, if you launch somebody already and they're launched particularly high, then you might be able to get something out of that, but generally that's not what I like this variation for. I like it for the low chain in both the projectile form and in this form, which is a true low. Stibbity Stabbity does okay damage. Now, if you amplify, Crushing Blow. Now, here's the thing. This has its Crushing Blow of a really bad requirement, so you're almost never going to see it. You have to maintain this stance, and I quote, for a long duration. How long is long? Approximately 3 seconds. Watch. I'm going to turn easy Crushing Blows off just to demonstrate. 1. Okay, hold on. 1. 2. Okay, so it's about 2 seconds, not 3. So, you have to hold this for 2 seconds, at least, and even then I'm pretty sure I mistimed it. Let's take a look. So, that was 88 frames, and that still didn't do it. 82 frames didn't do it. 95 frames did, so approximately 90 frames if I had to guess. Yeah, about 90 frames. And if we learned anything from Shao Kahn, moves that are 90 frames long are basically useless. So even though you get really good damage, you're almost never going to see it. They should cut this time by a third, or even in half. Make it 45 frames for this thing to Crushing Blow. My God. Or do what the others do. Do what other attacks that have fairly decent range like this do. and have it beat a roll. If this beats a roll, it can Crushing Blow. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about... let's go back to From Hell to talk about his Fatal Blow. Which hurts a lot, especially if you use it to end a combo. I am, of course, talking about the myth, the legend. No, it's not that great of a Fatal Blow to start off with, but it's called the 8th Circle of Hell. This is a normal Fatal Blow, but it has a cool gimmick. You can either aim low or aim high. So you either go high or you go low, even though it's actually a mid, and you get damage. It's a Fatal Blow. You can't really go wrong with the kind of damage that you get. It's also 24 frames, but the up Fatal Blow is really good for one particular reason. Pretending that, let's say the opponent had jumped there to try and get out of my normal Fatal Blow, they can eat my Fatal Blow if they jump in at me regardless. So now it's time for the Fatal Blow combo. And this is one of the most terrifying, in terms of damage, that I can create in Mortal Kombat 11. So I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to be awesome. Might take a little bit, but it'll be worth it. I'll see you guys around. I have to turn on breakaway.